a bit of your last week's podcast, or not last week's, but the last one that you guys were doing, and you had Simpletonium. And the funny thing is, we were hanging out in level design chat, and he was in there, and we started discussing things, and I was like, yeah, I remember on the podcast it was Bridge, Jimmy, Arlene, and like he's literally like ringing in the chat, and I'm like, and was it you?
I want to say you.
we were chatting about some of the topics from your last week, or the last podcast. It was kind of interesting.
No, it was good because like, it's funny you say that, because he did mention that conversation that he had with you, and how much he enjoyed chatting with you. And Simpletonium is definitely one of those quite philosophical people, like very thoughtful and considered, and works through things mentally a lot. He's great to talk to, and I actually do want to do a one-on-one with him, because he's great to talk to, and he's always got ideas and likes exploring concepts a lot. So.
We were talking briefly. We jumped into like discussions about like, I guess, new mappers and why they shouldn't create Lord of the Rings on their first go around, or like, it's the idea of like, this is your first time opening an editor, and you want to make Lord of the Rings trilogy. I was like, that's cool, I guess.
Maybe you should figure out how to make a door first.
yeah. I mean, that's it's always funny when that happens, right?
Oh, and you see it all the time. Like, it is more common than you'd think. I would have thought, like, people like even young and experienced people, they'd be a little bit of hubris. So, like, maybe I shouldn't dive into creating this Minas Tirith 1-to-1 recreation scale, but trying to actually make an exitable level first with a single teleporter. That sounds like something I can do. And it's like, why would you go for that big ambitious thing? Kind of like, surely a part of you knows it's going to be fucking hard. And that would be enough to...
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah, no, maybe not.
I think the end, the one point, and it might seem a little, I don't know, spiteful or something. I don't know. But the idea that like those people sometimes just need to go through it. They need to have that moment
where realization, oh shit, this is hard.
Yeah, like they need to have the fire. They need to have that moment of like, whoa. Like, what was I thinking? Like maybe a year or two later, they're like, there's no way I'm finishing this.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't take a couple of years. Although, like, it's interesting you say that, because, when I started out, way back when, dabbling in level editing for Doom, I was definitely leaning that way as well. Like, I did fuck around and make some, like, real beginnery early maps and just get some stuff made and figure out some of the basics, but I dove into the idea that would become Age of Hell quite quickly. And while now I don't regret it, like, I'm happy with what I can make and what I have made and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
It took 17 years for me to release a map into the public sphere.
Look, so that's why I'm like, also like,
not good.
I think it's easy for people like us that have the experience now to look back and be like, look, don't do follow my path. But I do think there's a lot of like experimentation. So like, so it's that expression, like, kind of getting the wheat from the chaff or whatever. Like, I know that in this context, it's the people who come back for more and keep going and keep pushing themselves are the people that usually like keep getting better.
Yeah.
But those people who like hit that like second Lord of the Rings book or whatever, and they're like, there's no way I'm doing this, and like I'm totally burnt out, and they get sidetracked and
that's
something else.
Exactly what happened to me. Like, I did a stint, I don't know, a year or two when I was younger and a teenager, and then didn't map for years, and then did another stint and got all ambitious and excited again, and then didn't map for 7 years again. Like, there's more not mapping time in my career than mapping time, and it is reflected in that diving in too deep, too ambitious.
Right.
Like, I got obsessed with like a lot of early mappers do, with making a 32 level megawatt. Like, it had to be 32 levels.
Right.
Make all 30 and make all 32 and then release it.
Who are you?
I know.
You're not doing. I'm just kidding.
Weak. And then
somebody at home going like, I only planned for 25 maps. Oh shit!
I have to do 32.
Make it 32.
Start scribbling. Yeah, and like and part of that was I was working in Iceland. I wasn't involved in any communities. It was just something that I liked to do for fun, which And like, I actually think that wasn't necessarily a 100% bad thing. It did mean that I could just play around and enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it. And I think that's why I've got this huge amount of passion and for mapping, is because I spent so much time just doing it purely for fun, like how you play a game for fun, for no other reason than to have fun. That's why I mapped. So I never released anything. I didn't interact with community members. It was just me, and I'd show a couple of mates kind of thing when they came around, and I was like, oh, look what I made yesterday. But that was about it. And it means that now, while it has taken a long time to actually get some stuff out there, I've got that kind of like raw enjoyment to base it on, which I think is a good thing. I definitely don't recommend that path for your average new mapper.
I never finished a Half-Life 2 map. Like, that's like the thing is, like I was in the same boat. Like, I basically never got around to. I have like a ton of projects that I never released. There's just tons of levels that are all, by my own standards today, just like the worst. And I like every once in a while I like load up like an old Portal mod or something like that, and I'll take a look and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of fun, But like there's so many things like that where you just keep moving on and you keep trying new things and you get better at like different scripted things, or like, oh, here's like a character in a scene that does a thing, and then like now I'm getting better, and now I'm like a narrative scripter, and now I'm like doing this other stuff. So it's there's a lot of bouncing that I think can happen. Even if somebody never finishes something, they can still get like a ton of skills from doing like tons of random stuff. But you mentioned like, how about just setting up a room with a teleporter or like a door? And that's one of the reasons why I also, so just a little background. I saw somebody in chat ask this, but like I'm one of the devs for Prodeus. It's an indie retro shooter that is on Steam right now. You can just check it out. It's Prodeus with a D. We've got it on our t-shirts. But yeah, one of the things that I like to do is we do these like little challenges where, like, for the weekend, we'll just make a door. It's like, hey, everybody, we're going to pile on and make like a bunch of funny, like cool sci-fi doors this weekend. Like, have fun doing it. And the results are always just like really cool. Like, people like really go out of their way and make these cool doors. And it's something that when you realize what kind of feedback comes back to just making a simple door and making it feel good when it opens, and not just like an origin brush that just rotates open, but like actively something that feels good, you start to realize, oh, there's a lot more to player feedback than I thought. And we did another one last weekend with an elevator. We did an elevator lift. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. Some people came up with some really cool.
I saw that. Was that skull? Like, that big like demon skull. That was so cool. I was just like,
made a skull.
Can I have that?
Like, you actually climb into the skull's mouth, and so like cool. There's a button, and you press it, and it like lifts it back up.
That's very Doom Eternal. That was awesome, and it's an interesting point there, because I actually think that's a good idea. Like these themes, like almost speed maps, where you like make a pillar. I might steal that idea, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
The main thing that's really great about it, right, is just like that instills just like, okay, so maybe I'm not confident enough to make an entire level, but you can gain that confidence by entering these little things that you can build smaller pieces and gain that momentum.
And just exploring a concept, like, that exploration of a single idea. Like you say, you have to focus on an entire level with a story arc and progression of like, I'm going to make a cool pillar, and just lose yourself in that. And that's actually a lot of how, particularly when I'm starting out a new level, that's what I'll do. It's like, I don't know what I want to, I've got an idea, maybe I've done a sketch, I'm going to make a cool pillar, and then I'm going to make a nice window, and then a nice staircase. And as I'm making these like little kind of disparate individual elements, just because I think that they're fun to make, the idea starts to cement, okay, I can link these together like this. Okay, let's put 6 pillars around in a ring, or the stair can go here, and put, and then the level grows from that. And I think that ability to just lose yourself in something small is really important, particularly when you want to make something big at the end of the day. Focus on those.
I think that's something that's really that comes with a lot of experience, though. I don't know if that's something that can easily come to somebody just starting out, because they don't necessarily have like the bigger picture at that point. But somebody like us, who can sit down and who's had like just a ton of experience making like rooms and like tons of different architecture, it's a little easier. Usually when I'm doing that, like I make like a one pillar type idea, it's usually based off of like a gameplay thing, like something that will happen that the player will have to either move around or be a part of,
an actual
or like
mechanic,
like some kind of combat setup. And I'm like, okay, well, what kind of cool combat setup? And then like the combat grows from there, and the room and stuff like that can be a little bit more finalized, like once you've come up with some stuff. Because I mean, it's just like it's an interesting way of just taking that one little idea and expanding on it. Is something that I think a lot of people could do, for sure. Once you get used to it, I think it's a great way of dealing with things.
Because like what you say, you're saying you'd be focused on an encounter design or a mechanic or something. I'm definitely more purely definitely initially like focused on visuals and architectural design and that kind of stuff. But I do have in the back of my head, almost subconsciously, how's a fight going to work in here? What's going to happen? And I think you're right. That experience is important to know and try. And like it goes in confidence as well to know that it doesn't. If I don't have that fully fleshed out, I'm confident in my ability to turn this space into something fun. And it's not going to end up like a choked up mess or anything like that. I think that is a good point. Yeah, that it's something that you get better with over time. If I look at what I used to do 2 years ago, still stuff that looks good, but fell down a bit more on that final gameplay concept because it wasn't a cohesive design as I was building it. And it's something that I feel like I've definitely gotten better. So actually, this all ties in quite nicely to a couple of questions that I had pre-planned, and one of them was like, because this is something that I see a lot of commentary around from both ends of the spectrum, and it's like people's first maps, their early works. Either they're just starting out and they kind of hate what they do because they see what the experienced people are making. Oh fuck, I can't do that. And then people looking back on what they used to make, even a year or 2 years ago, they go, "Oh, that's kind of nasty." What? So, say going back to the beginning of Prodeus, like, do you get that? Like, what do your old maps make you feel?
Yeah, actually, we were looking at one of the level designers was playing through the campaign again, and just based on all the stuff that we know already about the game and what makes a good level and whatnot, we were looking at the first few levels, and I was just like, we would look at a wall and like immediately, like, because there's an optimization, there's like a face count that we like to aim for like low end consoles in the future and stuff, and so we like walk into a room and be like, "Ooh, look at that ceiling!" That's a lot of slices in that. Like literally last night we were doing this, and it was like, I don't. And then we were looking outside at like one of the building faces, and I said, I don't even build buildings like that anymore. I said, I can't stand that. Look away, please. There's just there's definitely like. There's something to be said about where you started and like where you ended. And I think that's true for like most processes, like with games. And I think it's really difficult to kind of to nail that down throughout the entire process. But definitely like once you get into that groove, it becomes a lot easier and to like focus on the things that are important to your game and like what satisfies a pillar of your game. And okay, this doesn't really land there, but is it unique enough that we keep it or something? But so just going back and looking at some of the original levels, like I don't think about it too hard because that's a part of the game. That's what it is. And that'll always be a part of the game, and that little subsection of the game will be there. So I don't think of it as like, oh, we should redo it, or like, oh, that's so bad, because like during the time when we were testing it and everything, it was good and it's still good. It's just like when you play it for like the 30,000th time or whatever, it's hard to still gauge if like things are still like up to snuff, or like, do you need to like change things? But in that time capsule of like when it was created and how it was created with the like first half of the campaign in mind, I still think a lot of those levels are good. There's just like aesthetic things that you look back and you go, oh, like I do things totally different now. In
hindsight, and I think it's important. Like as the mapper, as the creator, you'll be much more aware of the things that you don't like anymore, things that you've gotten better at. You'll burrow in and like, oh, I don't make windows like you say. Oh, that ceiling's a bit messy. Oh, I wouldn't do that again. Players don't pick up on that very often, and particularly if you're playing through a game that has, the first maps were made earlier on in the development, and then so on and so forth. And then by the end of it, it's the designers have gotten better. Your tools have improved. You're better, and it's not actually a bad thing to have that ramp up through a game. Like you look at Dusk and Medieval, and they do the same thing. Like you can see with Dusk, the devs getting better at what they were making. They get more ambitious with their designs. You get to the Escher Lab stuff. You get that the gravity switching maps, which are fucking wild.
Absolutely.
And really, really crazy designs. And you go back and play the first map, and it's like simple, like farmhouse kind of stuff. And that's not a bad thing because it fits the story arc. And the levels are still fun, like you say. The early Prodeus maps, they're still fun to play as a player. Medieval did the same thing. You get up to compare the first episode to the seventh, and the seventh is some of the wackiest level design I've ever seen. So you look at these successful products that have done really well, and they've got those same kind of mapping arcs and the way the devs have worked, particularly with things like in Prodeus is the same. They released each episode, and then the next episode, and the next episode. Chunks of gameplay came out, and it wasn't like the early stuff hadn't been released and the devs could go behind the scenes and do big reworks and stuff. It's like, no, these are actually out there in the public sphere. People have played them, people like it, so we're just going to leave it. And it's kind of like a bit of a timestamp.
We've done like a little bit of a, like for us, we've definitely done some rework on some of the initial levels because of some of the mechanics that we were working on. Went back to make sure that everything was going to feel really good to go back. And I really want the game to have like a really strong cohesive feeling when it's over. And you really can't get that until like everything's done. And like sitting there in front of you objectively so you can like look at it from start to finish. So I do think that that's a thing to be said, about keeping things like at least cohesive. I do understand, like, so the funny thing is a lot of this goes back to like almost like what was the original Quake or when all the designers were building in 3D for the first time, and everybody had their own different weird style. So then they were like, how do we work this in? And it was like, different dimensions, and like each dimension is like a different designer, a different art style. And I think that's a really tricky thing to balance because like when we're working on the game, like some of the people that worked on it, right, everybody kind of has like a different art style, like the way they like to do things. But it does come down to like if you have like a strong vision holder who can go, this doesn't work or this doesn't look right, we wouldn't do this in the game. I think that's important to have as well, just to keep things consistent, or at least in the realm of like what you would expect.
You compare game. Like a true community project where people just make maps and there's no rules necessarily around like a cohesive theme, and it's a jumble, and that's the beauty of community projects. You get a lot of different products, a lot of different styles and stuff, and you compare that to a managed project where there's someone at the top saying, this is the kind of thing we want to stay within these boundaries. You want your different mappers to bring their own styles and tastes and flavors.
Absolutely,
variety is good, but you want to keep it within certain parameters in terms of to keep that consistency. So people who, when they play the first 3 maps, they go, this is really fun, I really like this, and they come across this outlier like, what the hell? And you throw it for a spin, and they go, I hate this now.
I think that's okay, and in like mods and stuff like that. Like I don't think anybody really minds that kind of stuff. I do like feeling like I'm in the same game, and not jumping from to a different feeling game all of a sudden, but that's not really like a huge deal. Like I think just to go back to your original point of just you learn as you go. The aesthetic of the game slightly changes as you're going through. You're learning new things. We've got different art styles and stuff coming to the game, which is always fun, and just trying to like feel those out within the parameters of the first half, and like it's actually really interesting to get through.
So we kind of did touch on it with that kind of like concept design competitions you got, but like, do you practice mapping, level design? Do you sit down and go, I'm going to try this new thing, push my outside my boundary? Do you make lots of like dummy map throwaway experiments and stuff like that? Do you have or do you just dive in and start making a level that you want to make for Prodeus and just see how it goes?
Well, I think there's a little bit of both for sure. Like, I mean, if you're prototyping ideas out, I think that's like one of the only ways to like really flush like some ideas out for an entire level. Like back in the day when I was doing Half-Life stuff, I was like, what if like the Combine had a little spore pack on, and then he could control the antlions in the area, so the antlions would like do what he wanted, and like he could throw a little ball of spores on this car, and an antlion would appear and then like move the car for him and then go away or whatever. And I made a prototype where that was all working and looking cool, and they would like attack the enemies with him and then return and follow him. And I was like, well, this is fun. Like, and then you could take that prototype and literally make an entire level out of it. Just, okay, we'll have the car part here, or like this building needs to be breached. So then you can see him breaching this building and taking on a lot of like rebels or something. And then like, oh, this part will be cool because he'll do this. And then at some point you'll get close and you can remove his pack. And then the antlions will attack him because they're no longer friendly or whatever. And
so when you when you made that, when you started it, were you just like, I'm just going to come up with this cool idea and just see how it works? You weren't planning on taking it further initially?
Well, I think it just depends on like what you're doing at the time. Like for me, I enjoy doing prototypes and just seeing like where I can take something, like how far I can take it to see if it makes sense. And like if somebody could play it, like would it look good and would they understand the concept? So I was doing a lot of like that kind of stuff. I had a blog going on my personal site just called Prototypes and Polygons, where I would put together like little prototypes and just throw them up on there, like little mini games or games and like little scripted stuff. And I would just try and like break down how I would do it and like why I would do it a certain way. But some of those ideas do turn into like full levels or like mechanics that are driven. So for example, I recently made like a minecart thing in Prodeus for one of the levels. And then I was thinking like one day I was just sitting there. It was like late on like a Saturday or something. And I was just like, yeah, let me just like, what if this was like a thing that you had to turn on and then you had to like sit behind it because there was a bunch of snipers on this side. And then like you would basically escorting the cart and then things would attack you and you'd have to stay behind the cart and it would create like a certain pathway. So then I started messing with that idea some more, and it kind of evolved, and like certain things weren't fun, so you cut them. But then like I ended up making an entire level out of it that I just finished like last week.
Oh, nice.
And it's a pretty beefy level. But yeah, so that kind of thing can always, it just depends on what you're thinking and like what you're feeling at the time. And if you're quick about it, you block out some really basic versions of the idea. You don't take it to final. You just I threw a bunch of snipers across a ravine and put a shield up just as a test, so the player has to like stick behind it. And just like, okay, let's see how this feels. Okay, this speed is too fast. Slow it down. Okay, let's put some zombies. Like there's a barrier up ahead, so when you crest this barrier, all of a sudden zombies start attacking you, and now you're trying to like watch out for the zombies, and also you have to stay behind the cart. So like I just like would constantly iterate on like a bunch of different ideas as fast as I could, and then just whatever stuck or was feeling good, you keep it. And then like, if you're feeling the level still, just keep working on it and keep going. I mean, sometimes like if you're sitting down and you have to have a level, it's always good to just prototype some of the core ideas so that you can know if it's going to work well or not. Because the last thing you want to do is make a whole map around a single idea that doesn't work at all.
Yeah. And I think that's like you used the word that I had in my brain that whole time was just iterating, iterative design. And that's something that comes up a lot in these kind of conversations that I have with people, is working through ideas, a bunch of ideas, and testing them potentially until, like you say, one sticks. So interesting. Like I hate wasting time. I hate deleting stuff. partly because it takes me so long. Partly because it takes me so fucking long to make the stuff that I make. Like there's a huge amount of time cost, and so I do go through a similar problem. I do it mentally. Like I think for me that works well. Like I'm always thinking about, what should I do next? What should I like in my work or at the gym? The gym's a good place for me to do level design planning. I've had a lot of like really good lightning bolt ideas on the treadmill. But when I sit down and start, for me, it's like, no, I'm going to be productive, and what I'm doing here will contribute materially to the final product. It must. And it's this kind of hang up I have, but obviously, a lot of people don't. And I think, for the broader base of creators, like being able to iterate is very important, and because your first idea is not normally the best one.
Most of the time it's actually not the best one. I mean, there's always like a rare thing where it just works out and you're like, whoa, that was actually pretty great. Like great, let's just keep going. But I mean, so I think that just comes down to your style as well, and I think it depends on like So like just my background of being in AAA for so long, I'm basically stuck in the mode of working in dev textures first.
Yep.
And for the longest time, I couldn't get into that mode. And it was kind of detrimental. Like one of the reasons why I never finished any of my earlier projects was because they weren't about gameplay. They were just about art. And it was just about making a really pretty art thing. But then once you've made a certain amount of detail for this one room and it looks amazing, you're like, oh, now I have to do that for a whole level?
Fuck, yeah. Damn it.
But like, I don't know, like there's a thing, right, where when I build in like dev texture form, I am like absolutely okay with just chopping stuff. Like no questions asked, like whole section, gone.
Yeah.
Like I don't even care.
It's just dev textures, you know, you can chuck it out the window.
Yeah,
that's a good point, actually.
I'll spend like 10 minutes or like I'll spend like maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes making an area, like a building with a layout. And and then just after some playtesting, people are just not jiving with it. And then I've noticed that like, oh, this section just detracts from the overall gameplay experience. Cool. Yeah, no worries. Cut it. Like it's gone.
Because
yeah.
Sorry. Dev tech, like I've dabbled with them. Okay, they just don't work for me.
Yeah, I think it's challenging. Like for you, right? Like a lot of your rooms that are like very cylinder shaped, like you could almost. And I think this is it just depends on what type of game you're making as well. Like for us, like I just stick to like the core flow type stuff where it's like this is how the player is going to feel and experience this section. So I'll add some of these things. Like a lot of the cool decorative stuff doesn't interact with like gameplay experience for me.
I think it's also like because you do a very clear block out process. And a lot of your, which I don't. I've tried to do block outs, and it just doesn't quite click with me. And I don't like. It's one of those things that I won't recommend to people, but I do get stuck into the fine detailing, and a lot of that is about texture choices. And particularly with the stuff I'm using for Age of Hell, a lot of the textures they're banded. And they inform patterns. It's like, oh, cool, this texture will look good if it wraps like this around the room. And that, like, quite often will actually drive the design. So it's kind of a bit of a tail wags the dog process a lot of the time for me.
It's interesting. I've definitely seen people, like, pick a texture set and then make a really nice space with it. And I think that's really cool that, like, it's very interesting. It's like as if, I don't know. It's weird because like when I think about like Bob Ross's style of painting, right? It's almost as if like they just gave him cobalt red and like or white, and we're like, you got to make a really nice picture of a wine case, and then that's how you started. And I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but like I think one of the things that I like and I don't like about my process is that one, it keeps me focused on just gameplay, like only gameplay. Like, is this sequence fun? Did this happen? And then that's it. Like, I don't overthink it. Like, okay, cool, this is great, and it also helps me set up my compositions and stuff a lot easier. But otherwise, having to go back and then art it up again. I think a lot of people get really. I think this is the thing that comes back to the whole. Just having done it like a whole bunch is that you look at a gray box and you're like, ooh, what is this? I think a lot of people can do like have that moment where they're not sure about what this thing that they're building is going to be. But if you have purpose and I think a strong idea from the beginning, it makes it a lot easier. Yep. Like I was telling Josh, and I think maybe this is just a me thing, but like once you've built a level a certain way, the rest of the level to me kind of builds itself based off of certain things that you've done. And I know that can be really tricky for like, to like visualize. And I just think that like, depending on like the player's speed, like their jumping height and all that other stuff, like you should be able to kind of work some magic there. But I don't think that's for everybody either. And I think that can be a real challenge, and I think that's just me being like beaten over the head in the industry for so long. Like you must work this way, and you must see the Matrix the way like like when I look at the Matrix, right? I don't see blonde redhead. I see gameplay opportunity. I see like sequence. I see like cool scripted moments, and like that's what when you're looking at block out. That's what you have to be able to see past that, and usually. you don't really see that until like the art team takes it over. And the reason why like the industry builds like this too is that it's so quick to get the block out done and maybe get some testing, right?
Which
and then
important,
like
very important, yeah.
There's like a team of 30 people who are gonna come in and like hand model your space, and they're gonna buffer the size of the area a little bit. They're gonna set up new compositions and things like that. So a lot of that stuff, it becomes important that you can be very fluid in that blockout state. And it's something that
I think that's an important point that you just raised there. Like there's like with these AAA setups, and certainly some indie ones as well, is there's a team. There's not one person making all of the map. It's someone does a block out, and then like an art person will come in and pretty it up, and add in like Doom Eternal. A lot of the detailing is done with decals, and I very much imagine they had a decal team that just went and made all the stairs look cool and all the pillars look cool after the broad shapes had been built. And you can't do that backwards. You can't if your team's set up like that. You can't have your art team start. You have to. There is a clear sequential process. Block out, combat fleshed out. Even if it's just roughly cool. We're locking in the space. This is the shape that it's going to look like. Now we can refine it, make it look good, do those fine tweaks. And also a lot of the time with these, producing a new game, the gameplay is still being under development. Like if you're making a Doom map, the Doom combat loops been cemented for 25 years. So you don't have to go, how does an imp feel? You know how an imp feels in this space. We've seen a few. Whereas, Prodeus makes a new enemy. Cool, we're gonna like the boss fight. The
Harbinger.
Yeah, the Harbinger is the one. That so you go, oh, here's a cool enemy, we want to build around him. And like every time you make a space for him to operate in, it's a new space, it's a new concept, we've never done this before, therefore you want to get into gameplay quickly, test that your ideas actually, like you say, are fun. Cool, this setup works, we like having these shields here, he converts these guys in this kind of like, this cool scripted moment, we're going to have that happen. Cool, that area's locked in, go on to the next bit. This didn't quite work, we'll change the shape a bit and enemy compositions and
for sure.
Positioning, and cool, that's all fine, and then you can come through and make it all look pretty at the end. For sure. I think, there's different workflows do work better in different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you can't make a Doom map and just like be able to like, I think that's like the thing about something that's been around for like 30 years or whatever, is that you should be able to just build your spaces and then fill them in with like the enemy archetypes afterwards, and like because like by that time you probably have a pretty good idea for the combat flows and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely like I've seen like people like especially with the hotspot stuff now where you can make the textures kind of bend to your will versus like having to make a pillar that's exactly 32 units or like at the base and then whatever. Things just change dramatically when you start working with textures like that, for sure.
It's interesting, like watching even in the last year, like, Doom has been around for, 2.5 decades. Even something like GZ Doom, which is, the advanced engine that's not quite Doom anymore, but Doom adjacent. Even that's been around for probably 10 years now or something like that. You're still seeing like new, like radical new designs come out even now. And a lot of that comes down to the tools. The Doom Builder is still being developed and updated. And I know that, Prodeus has gone through similar things where there's been new tools added that you get Mike, who works tirelessly behind the scenes. Big shout out to Mike. To give you like, oh, can we get this tool that does this? And he's like, okay, cool. Off he goes and out it pops. And it's
I wish it was that easy.
Maybe not quite that easy. I might have jumped over a few steps there, but I think it's important to like, or very cool, like to look at the tool development and how that then informs level design. And one thing that anyone who knows me, I'm a big fan of my abstract concepts, and I think that's partly why my workflow works for me is. I'm not locked into this room needs to look like a hangar or a garage or an office block or whatever. I can like, it doesn't matter whether it looks useful at the end of the day. That's not important to me. So I can just build weird, wacky shapes, lots of curves and that kind of stuff. So like, I've noticed with like Prodeus, it does have a lot of like kind of realistic feeling spaces. But does that inform your level design, or do you focus on like, no, we're just going to go for block out and pure combat, and then just try and make them look like believable used spaces that people once worked in, maybe?
I mean, which it's interesting that you bring that up, like real life, like lived in spaces. We don't really have any of those in Proteus. We don't really have we have like unnamed factories. You know, we have the famous anybody who's worked on the level editor knows that there's a famous like O2 texture, and like that's it. It's like we have one texture that's got O2 written on it in different ways. So like every building in the game is literally like the second one, or like the second elevator, the second floor. But yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because I think one of the reasons why a lot of things are like not named is mostly because we don't want to be beholden to a certain thing. Like we don't need to have that like tied to like, I don't know, like Russ's junkyard or Russ's like hangar. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly that. And to some degree, I wish we did do a little bit more of that, and we have started doing some of that in one of the most recent levels. But overall, we try and keep things just pretty like almost abstract. Like the goal was to kind of meet sort of the original feeling of like some of the older retros, where like a lot of those spaces didn't make sense. Like none of them did.
Like classic, Doom 1's a good example. They're all named like Toxin Refiner and Refining Station and whatever. They don't make sense when you go on them. No. There's just enough texturing, like there's a computer here and like a thing that looks like maybe it's a pump, and it's like, this feels... Yeah, someone worked here once, I guess. Yeah,
why not? And we definitely wanted to, like, at least from my perspective, like when we were doing the level design, to kind of like bring in that idea of just it still being quite abstract, but still having like a similar feel to something that you would recognize. And I definitely wanted to continue that, but because like even if you start doing the human stuff where you start putting in somebody's like bookshelf or whatever, everything gets shrunk down in scale, and then it becomes most of the time not really great gameplay space. But,
yeah, well, I know, 100% agree. Like, I'm pretty firmly of the opinion is that the more realistic you try and make your spaces, the harder it is to make fun combat. It's not fun.
Absolutely.
40 office cubicles aren't fun to fight in.
No, but it definitely will look like an office.
Exactly.
You know,
and
congratulations.
I'm thinking like I think it's Marksman, Dragonfly's map. Like there's a lot of crates, and it feels like a bit of a processing facility, and there's like a train and stuff. But if you actually think about it, no one's going to build a processing facility up all these different levels. How do you move crates up? It's the worst place to build a storage facility. But there's just enough of that detailing, and a lot of it comes down to texture usage. And it's like, okay, it feels like some sort of plant. And I think, if you can just cross that line into, like with Prodeus, because there is a bit of a plot, there's clear kind of antagonist and protagonist forces, and, it's kind of like the original Doom. You just need to cross that line just enough to make spaces. This feels like a place where someone once did something, but now I'm fighting zombies. There's these buttons feel like they were originally meant to do things. There's bridges and things that look like they need to be processed, and things that maybe won't make oxygen. I don't know, but it's got a big pump on it.
Lots of pumping going on in these worlds. And when we go to like the Proteus universe stuff too, that's gonna feel even more departed from like normal spaces.
I'm looking forward to that,
which is gonna be great. I mean, there's just so much of that too. Like, I don't know, there's like a time and a place to do the more personalized stuff, but I think generally speaking, like when I look at how fast our game moves and stuff, like there's not really any time to stop and like smell the roses to some degree. So like we try and design our spaces around the concept of smooth, buttery like movement and just go. But I mean, there's not a space for it for sure. I just think that
two games that I do like to go back to is always Dusk and Medieval, because they came out at the same time, and they were kind of the front runner of this wave of new games, and they're both fun in their own right. And Medieval goes hard into that abstract design, like everything is just weird and wacky and wild. These different kind of like Quake, all these different realms with these different styles, different themes. They don't really make sense. They just look cool and they're fun to play in. And then you look at Dusk, and they have done all that small stuff. Like even later on, there's that map where they've got all the upside down stuff. There's houses with like paintings in it, and it feels like this is someone's I hadn't really thought about it that much up until now, but contrasting that, Dusk does dive into those small touches really well, and not to the detriment of their ability to go abstract and build weird places and go for cool gameplay concepts. That's interesting.
There's definitely like a version, like I've seen it in like a bunch of the community maps where it can work. It's just like a lot of extra work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But, I mean, once we start to like get into like some of that like finer detail stuff, it's fun because essentially it's somewhere where like the heart of the game can kind of live as well. Not just in some random level.
Gives it a bit of
like
personality. Yeah.
You know,
because we call it
a little bit more heart.
We call it Doom Cute. And the Doom mapping.
Cute.
Doom Cute. Like when people do their little, like, so one of my friends made a sector screwdriver. It looks really good. It's like the time it would takes to do these like little. I always admire people's patience for that kind of stuff. The official term in Doom mapping circles is Doom Cute because it's always looks cute.
That's hilarious. Some of the workshop stuff. So we recently updated our level editor with a structure or like what we call prefabs. We call them structures in our game. We have like a little browser now where you can upload those things. Like somebody made like some candles that work, and they literally just uploaded them to the workshop, and now you can just drag them into your level.
Oh, that's awesome!
Put a bunch of candles around.
So like a community prefab, because you can do prefabs in many editors. But yeah, like that's a really good idea actually. Like having a community asset store essentially. Like, hey, I made this thing, and like now you guys can use it too.
Yeah, somebody put in like some, because we did the elevator thing recently. Just grabbing people's like elevators. Somebody made a really cool like mini ship thing with like some cool tanks underneath it that was like flying. Just really cool stuff. And you just want to like if we weren't working on the main campaign stuff at this point, like I would be making levels with
it's like I'll use this
workshop stuff. Yeah, and it's super helpful too because if you don't know how to make something, you can explode the structure and then see all the scripting functions and stuff and how they did it. So it becomes really quite cool.
No, that's really cool. And I think that'll it does feel like that the community stuff is definitely going to be a big part of Prodeus going forward, and like having that kind of resource there for people. And like you say, not necessarily the most skilled or new to the editor, and they want to put something cool in their map. Well, they can. They just go grab it, and put those cool detail things, and focus on making an actual level. And then, as you say, they can retro engineer and break it apart and figure out learn from these finished products. Because I think that's a lot of that's an important part of new mapping. It's like, how do I do this? Oh, let's go find someone who's done it before and learn from them.
Right. I think that's one of the great things too about our community is that everybody's so quick to share their map files with everybody. Like, oh, how did you build this? Oh, here, check out my level. Like some of the contest winners actually did that too. They'll like post their map files for everybody to kind of check out and stuff. And it's really just like a great booster to the community as well, just to be able to look at how somebody made something.
It definitely feels like with Prodeus, you've managed to tap into the best parts of a mapping dev kind of community atmosphere. And there's obviously other ones that other communities that it's built off, but I think it's really great how both the fans have gone dove head first to it, but I think it's a lot of it's because they get huge amounts of support from you guys, from the dev team. It's obviously really important. Like we mentioned last time, the editor actually shipped with the alpha build, which is unheard of. It's ridiculous. In such a cool way.
We were like, we were working in it every day, so it was at that, like, it was basically at a point where, if someone's gonna use it, I think the only thing is, so like, we've touched base on this before, but the idea that like if you're building a level editor while you're building a game, like, and you were saying like how that like the tools reflect how you build the architecture and stuff. Like for the longest time, right, of just we didn't have the ability to rotate stuff. We didn't have the ability to copy paste or like
there goes my mapping style.
There was no prefab. Like every door that I made, like an excavation, which was like one of the like the 6th level or something, was the first map that I made, and I had to like hand script like 18 doors or something like that. And then it was like, oh, you know what? We just started figuring out like what makes good pro sauce. Like, what cool like way that it slams down. All right, I'll go in and I'll hook them all up different, with the new effect. And because there's no rotation, some doors have to be built again, but on like the 45.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, it was I think we didn't have an undo feature either. So if you messed something up, Yeah. There's like a lot, but like I'm used to that kind of stuff, so like it was easy for me to adjust to like, okay, this is just gonna be tough for a while.
Yeah.
And we're every once in a while we're like in design chat, and like somebody goes, wouldn't it be great if you could just add this like thing that like only I want, and like and, like everybody's like kind of like looks at them, and I'm just like, you guys have no idea. Like, there's just like, you guys came in after the tools were great. Like, like I really want to
kids these days have it so easy. Shake your cane at them.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, right? Like I still have some really old builds of the game from like around the Kickstarter time. And I really just want to send that build to like a bunch of the mappers and be like, make a map.
Yeah. Quit your bitching. Yeah. That's funny because the earliest editor that I use is one called Deep Sea, which is legendary for its jankiness. And I actually, one of the speed maps that we did, I went back and used that as a joke. Holy fuck, it was so painful. Like, you don't know, like, at the time I was like, oh, this is great. And you go back and you're like, how did I use this for so long? It's so painful.
I love it. It's so great. Yeah, even like the editor for Payday 2 was a really, really old Ghost Recon editor that they just happen to have. And yeah, that thing is just, it's so old, and just the way that everything works, it felt like, yeah, it was like, wow, I couldn't believe that people still use these types of editors to make games. And I'm so used to using, like in my career, just using Unreal 3, and then Unreal 4 came out just as I went to Payday, but that would have been really nice to work on as well. I love the idea of working in Unreal 4.
You can make some lot of stuff.
The scripting in that is just so good. I don't know. There's just so much, but to be honest with you, so we've gotten our level editor to like this certain point. You can now import and export OBJ files. So like you could import, I don't know, I think Josh like did a test where like he like imported the actual like Super Mario 64 level or something and like retextured it.
Fantastic.
And I was just like, whoa, that looks pretty good.
See, it'll be interesting, and like this is something that I'll be keeping an eye on, is out of interest, but if the Prodeus editor can end up like Ultimate Doom Builder, where you start making essentially other games with it, like, same kind of core coding of Prodeus, but new textures, new resources, new monsters, change the actual assets completely. So, you're playing with the same base mechanics, but with a whole new set of assets. And I think if it can get to that level, and it sounds like it's kind of heading that way, that would really open up just like a whole massive world of possibilities, and the creativity out there, and you just it must be quite exciting. Like, ooh, I wonder what people are going to do with this.
I mean, honestly, that's sort of the idea in the end, right? Is to have it at such a point where people will be able to do that kind of stuff, and I mean, it's going to be a lot more work on Mike. I don't think that kind of like accessibility will be there for 1.0, but shortly after that, Mike will switch gears and probably do some of that. But like me personally, I think it's I've never been able to have like my own tools. It's like, this is the game. These are the tools that we own, that we've made. These are our things. And like all the other stuff, like the infrastructure for the workshop, the browser, downloading, all that kind of like rating systems and everything. Like that's all done. That was all done by Mike, so it's like impressive. We're not beholden to like any kind of like weird third party plug and play system or anything like that. So I think the future is quite interesting if we keep at it. And I think the idea of just like, I don't know, I can see a future where like a group of people have made like a game with the level editor or whatever, and been like, hey, we'd like to pitch this, and it'd be like, oh, cool, like either like as a like map pack for Proteus, or like, oh, like this would be like amazing we would like to have our own game, and we could work something out. I honestly just think that kind of thing is just inevitable to happen. But also I'm just excited to, like, I would be absolutely okay with just using the Proteus editor for like more and more and more of my career. Oh, like it's at this point where like it's pretty hands off from Mike at this point. Like I could literally just keep making Proteus levels like in its current state.
There's been so much time and care put into it. It'd be a shame to have it as a a one and done, make one game, move on. It's a very, very, very good tool. And like what you're saying about the potential of someone to create some new IP for Prodeus, like in an official capacity. That's kind of what happened with Doom. With Final Doom, was not made by the ID team, but it is ingrained into that IWAD set. TNT and Plutonia. People don't think of them as lesser or not Doom because they were made by not John, people other than ID Games. So.
Not John Romero.
Not John Romero. Yeah, weak. All that kind of stuff can only extend longevity of a product, and I think it's fantastic that you guys are quite into that concept. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, maybe one day I'll get tired of it. I don't know how there's always like a future, but like people that really get sunk into these things, and like I really love the tools. Like they're really. For me, they're really nice. Like I don't have to use it's the perfect balance between like Hammer and some kind of 3D editor, because you don't need 2D viewports, because we have this like really nice crosshair tool, yellow line thing that goes on, and everything feels real nice to me right now. It's like at this really sweet spot where it's super stable. Like just
That's
before
important.
early access, like there were so many things that were breaking. It's like, oh, today I can't do this, like, but now it's like it's super streamlined, it's super stable. The draw tool feels great. Like, I mean, I don't know, I'm loving it right now. It's great.
No, like I definitely feel you when you talk about stability. Like as good as something like Ultimate Doom Builder is, there's definitely builds that have come out and like just all crash every 10 minutes. It's like, I can't do anything. Boris! Yeah. Fix one bug and another one pops up, and it's just, actually on Saturday there was a new error that popped up, and like reports of crashing, like just selecting a sector. It's like, this is not good. Big shout out to
I
the
do
DVDs.
remember that, like back in when Half-Life was they were updating the Hammer editor every once in a while, and like I think they broke the ability to like compile maps or like open levels or something like that. And even now, if you want to go back and like open up a Half-Life level or like a Portal level or something, you have to like find somebody's custom version of the editor to like open your Valve stuff now. It's just like one of those things that like over time, it just kind of like slowly crumbles if somebody isn't like constantly on it.
Oh, definitely. One kind of final, I think, plain question that I had, because I think this is always an interesting one to ask, people who know their trade. Is there like one other FPS game that you look at and you just think, holy shit, they did everything right? Like, is there one that you turn to as kind of like the gold standard for good design? That is stuck with you?
Ooh, that's hard. Not a lot of first-person shooters
Interesting.
like really reach that mark. I mean, some of them do like some really good stuff, like Half-Life with their storytelling and the way that they would do it in game, but their combat was really bad.
Yeah, I agree there.
And then there's like I don't know, that you get these other games that are just really great with their combat, but like they don't have any story. And like, it's hard to say, me personally, for a game that does everything right. But there's definitely like a lot of other types of games that I would look at, like third person type games. Games like Bloodborne, for example, that are like, they feel very pure. Something as recent as Valheim.
I've heard good things
Valheim.
about that. I've heard very good things about that.
That's like a really pure game at its core. Like everything always stays important, and I think that's something that's really difficult to do without like a really strong design sense. Is that like like a Goomba can always take Mario down a level, and like while they're like the lowest tier character, but they're always still relevant in some way. Whereas like in Valheim, it's the same way. Like you can lose all of your clothes and you go back, and now a level 1 board can like destroy you unless you're like on your game. And I really love that purity of the design process in there, and that like everything has its own usage. It's not like you can use two staplers to create an eyeball and like, you know, like some kind of like, and then this thing over here also creates an eyeball. It's just these two staplers create an eyeball and this thing creates something else. So there's like a purity to like, if we need a certain thing, we have to go to a certain place to get it. And
I think like the ability for a game to make sure things don't feel obsolete is a really tough one. And like you say, things always feel relevant. And I can think of a few examples. Like I think Skyrim does that pretty well. You'll out-level stuff, and at some point, the combat does get very meandering and easy once you get. But almost all mechanics that you discover are still useful, like crafting and enchanting, and all areas that's still worth going back to and harvesting stuff. And probably for me the FPS example, and I do harp on about it a lot, but it's Fear, and I play it about every 3 months. I go and play Fear again, and just the combination of the story, the way it's presented, just the visuals, the combat is so on point. Similar kind of thing. All the guns are fun and useful to use. You can use the pistol all the way through if you want, if that so tickles you. I just think they did a really good job of making everything feel relevant the whole time. And enemies are always scary. They can always kill you. Their level design I think was really on point. The only black mark it gets is those fucking turrets. Turrets are bad in FPS games. I've never seen them done well.
It's interesting though, because I mean, there's so many games that I did grow up loving. Like Red Faction does a really great job of like decent combat, really nice weapons.
Blow everything up.
They explored some new territory as well. And I mean, there's just so many examples of things like that you can take from different types of genres. The stealth genre is something that I really enjoy working on. But also like when I come across like really good stealth game, it's always fun to like see what their take on it. Like Dishonored games are really good for that. Like Dishonored's games are like good for telling story. They're good for pretty decent combat and like letting the player like enjoy their own way of telling, like through the mechanics of the game and the way that they move and stuff like that. They can tell their own story. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I came down the hallway and shot this guy with the shotgun and that was it. There's always like something to be had there. So I don't know. There's just so many examples of that. I don't really particularly have like one game that I put like on like a super high pedestal though.
Too picky.
Definitely like taking as many like really awesome and like fun ideas from like a bunch of different genres and stuff. It's always like a really nice thing to do.
I do appreciate it when a game tries to be ambitious with new ideas and maybe doesn't quite pull it off. Don't nail it, but kind of try and pave new ground and be adventurous. I'm always admire devs that can do that and put themselves out there. Here's something a bit different, guys. You might not like it. Let's see how it goes. And like actually a game that I was surprised at how. Because I've actually just gone back and replayed it, which is Doom Eternal, an old IP that's been around for a very long time, and has a very vocal fan base. But I think they actually really nailed a game that felt new and exciting, really fast paced, genuinely difficult on the higher difficulties, which is rare in a single player FPS, and just really fun to play through. And going back to it. It's like, no, this is a really good game, and I think that's not an easy thing to do, is to take something that is so beloved by a very large group of people and go, here's another one. It's a bit different. Hopefully, because you look at Doom 3, which was largely, well, maybe not largely, but definitely there was definitely a vocal minority that didn't like it.
Which you can't go from Doom 1 and 2 and then like there was definitely like a part of the industry that. Yeah, when it was like, let's try and reimagine things differently, and that ruined a lot of IPs.
Yeah, because I actually really liked Doom 3 because and that was when similar time to when Fear came out, and that action horror, like scary game, but still an action FPS. It's not survival horror. I think Doom 3 did it pretty well. It's a little bit slow, and it hasn't stood up as well long term. And there was definitely a lot of flaws in the gameplay design, I think, but when it came out, I was like, this is still Doom. This is great. I love it. new Doom IT, awesome. And then, but yeah, there was a lot of people that weren't very happy with it.
No,
because
I think that like what they've done will eventually stand up though, because they tried something new, and I think a lot of games are going in that direction. Like a lot of the competitive games that you play now, like Apex and stuff like that. A lot of those feed back into like the core loops of like what Doom Eternal is too. Like when you play Doom Eternal, it feels like you're stressed out. You're like really trying hard.
Very
like,
stressful.
It's pretty good. Like, I mean, I actually thought that, like me personally, I think it's an evolution of the space. I think it's really cool. I mean, it's not for everyone. It's actually quite difficult. So if you're looking for something chill, you're more likely to play like the 2016 version, which is still really good. I still like it. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, the 26. My only criticism is that it gets too easy later on. Like they got the difficulty curve off out of whack. But as a game, like in terms of the environmental storytelling and character presentations, like the Doom guy's just pissed. He's just angry. None of this like big.
I really like that.
Big grand story arc that particularly in expansion packs, Doom Eternal got into a bit too much. I think. Like it's quite simple, and I think that's why Doom 16 feels very true to the originals. They didn't layer too much over the base concept. There's a Doom guy, he's angry, there's demons, let's go kill them.
Right.
And a lot of levels, like Doom 16 is a good one to go back to actually, because it does stand up really well, and I think in hindsight you can appreciate how good a job ID did, particularly after the semi debacle that was Doom 3. Is like, okay, let's not fuck it up this time. And they didn't. They fucking knocked it out of the park. And I remember really vividly that first scene where you get out of the coffin and you punch up you shoot the possessed around you, and then you go into that lift and you slam the control panel into the wall, and then the music kicks in, and it's like, ooh, this is going to be good.
Like this is what the game should be about.
It's
and like they really cut. Like I think the remake of it was just so fantastic. I really liked it. It was some solid stuff.
I just remember having the biggest grin on my face going through that scene.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting too, because like we're always looking for references and stuff like that, and I've been looking at a lot of Halo stuff recently, and it's funny how like Halo and Doom 2016 share like a very close look. In terms of like some of the geometry and stuff like that, but like it's like Doom 2016 ended up being like Halo but in hell. And it was kind of like really interesting to see all that how that kind of played out. But I think it's fantastic. I have a few questions for you too, which is like, so you're in the process of making your project, and you're a little ways out, and one of your guys came into our chat recently and was like showing us all this really cool stuff that you guys are doing. Is there a point where that like, okay, my project's done, or is there like an open-endedness to it where like you're just kind of letting things come in as they come in? Or do you have like a specific, like, let's do a first episode, let's do a second episode? Like, how are you tackling it right now and internally?
So there is a pretty clear roadmap around that kind of thing. So there's going to be 3 volumes of 2 episodes each. Numbers of level for each one is a little bit fluid, like depending on how many guest mappers we can get in for each episode. So current goal is, first 2 episodes, get that all bundled up. First the demo, which we're very close to be able to release.
Nice.
So that will be dropping, hopefully, certainly in terms of getting some internal testing done, and opening up to the Patreon supporters. That'll be happening beyond the next month, I reckon.
Oh, right. You do have a Patreon. How's that? I mean, that must be really nice to be able to get some support from people as well for the first time. I mean, I know we talked about this before, where it's like, just give people the ability to help out,
exactly.
by doing like, by giving back at Patreon. How many times I've told Jimmy to like.
Yeah. I know there's a huge, nerds have big hearts, and I think it's great. It's, for a long time people have said, Age of Hell, I want to buy it. So the game will always be free. And, that's something that's not going to change. There's a bunch of reasons for that. So that's not going to change, but giving people the ability to help us. And this mean that we can commission more music, get some art promo done, and that kind of stuff, and make it a better product. And then, that will then become a springboard into an actual commercial developments, down the track. But yeah, as far as the base game goes, I do have a very clear idea of the packaging for each of the episodes, and there will be 6, and there's a story arc, and there will be a final. This is the end. You fight the final thing, we'll start dripping out that kind of imagery, start hinting at what's going to happen throughout this play, and things might change. This is definitely a long development arc. We're talking years
for sure.
to get through it all. But we're at a point where kind of all of the core assets are done now. We've got all our weapons largely finalized, a little bit of sound tweaks. Mm-hmm. We've got all the alt fires implemented. We've got all the enemies made. There's a few bosses left, bits and pieces here and there to finish off, but that core asset bundle is done. So now we can, as a mapping team, because I haven't been really driving that super hard over the last year or so, because assets weren't finished. It's kind of hard to tell people, go work with what? I don't know. Just go. Yeah, exactly. And because I knew where those assets were heading, I could do stuff. Like I could build a map and think, okay, I know how this is going to kind of work because I've, driving what these assets, or helping drive what these assets are going to be. But as someone who's just coming in to make a single map, you want to be able to give them, here's your toys. So yeah, that was a good milestone. We got there kind of late last year, and that's what's triggered the demo development. Do you
find that that you mentioned like a lot of the assets coming online kind of late and stuff, or recently? Is that when you're talking about that? Are you referring to like materials, like textures for the levels?
No,
we were talking about how the texture sets really drive how a level gets built for you guys.
No, we've had the texture set pretty defined, so we're using OTEX as a base, which is very, very nice. So fortunately, that kind of resource was easy to get hold of and start, and that's why I could make progress. But it was nice, actual bestiary and armory, the core elements for your gameplay, those weren't fleshed out. And the weapons in particular took a bit of time to make, that made it hard to, because a lot of the monsters are fairly analogous with the base Doom monsters, so you can kind of like, well, these guys are kind of like Barons, these guys are kind of like Cyber Demons, so you can roughly flesh out a fight concept in that kind of regard. But then the weapon set wasn't set, and we've got alt fires and a bunch of new mechanics, and that really does impact how things play. But this year is the first time I've actually been able to finish maps and give them to people to test and start getting that feedback coming back in, which has been great. And the general consensus is like, yep, this is feeling pretty good.
Nice.
There's always things to tweak, but it's getting that first wave of feedback was a little bit nerve-wracking. It's like, are we actually making something good? Because I've had my head buried in it for so long. You love what you're working on. It's like, let's get some outside input. It was really interesting watching. I think it was Ball play through it. Because he's going to make a map for one of the later episodes, and completely unused to anything. Never played it, never touched a weapon, and just watching him try and figure things out was really eye-opening. It's like, how well do we need to provide some tutorial kind of stuff? README files. How can we telegraph this better? And watching someone go through for their first time. He didn't realize what the alt fires were, and there was a power up that gives you it's principally our equivalent of the Berserk Sphere, makes your hammer really powerful. He thought it was a bomb. He didn't want to touch it. It's like that's a good thing. You need to go grab that. So that kind of conveyance was really fun to watch, and it's like, we should change that asset to make it clearer that it's a good thing that you need to go pick up. And I just didn't think someone would do that.
We had a lot of that too, actually. I mean, we still have that. I think a lot of people who pick up the normal shotgun for the first time think it's like an assault rifle, or they're like, oh, is that an assault rifle? And it really comes down to the look of the gun. But we definitely had some of that too, where people didn't understand what health or armor was. And something that I knew we were going to have to get really early on was just that little message thing in the corner that just explicitly told you what something was.
It's like, you picked up one of these.
Yeah, it just onboards you so quick to the concepts, and just kind of gets it out of your way. It's not something that I normally like to do, but I think for us it was really obvious, especially if somebody just only plays the community content for whatever reason. We've had a few people like that who've like started the game, but like didn't play it, just wanted to play the community stuff because they want to wait for like the full release of the game.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So being able to have like some of those things be there. The alt fires thing for us though is like the biggest thing. Was up until very recently when Mike he reworked all the reticles for the guns. So they have a dynamic version, but for other people who want smaller, like you could get like a tiny crosshair type thing. But a lot of the crosshairs in the game showcase what the alt fires do. So like if you switch to an alt fire, you can actually see like the reticle actually like behaves differently and lets you understand like, oh, it's charging on the reticle.
Yeah,
so like that makes sense.
We have a charge mechanic as well. Like as you kill things, you this little gem that fills up, and different alt fires use different amounts of the gem power. And like trying to telegraph that for the first time to someone is a tricky one because you don't want to be too on the nose. Like, here is the gem, it's big and bright and shiny. It's very distracting. Trying to find that balance between clear telegraphing but not distraction, which again Doom Eternal did quite well. I think like in terms of, because there's a shitload of like cooldown mechanics, the flame belch and the ice bomb and the grenades and all that kind of stuff, and their HUD could have ended up a very messy HUD, but I think they did really well conveying like little small things, and we are drawing a lot from this. Is like when your dash refills, there's this little blip, little sound.
Yeah,
just the right volume, just real subtle but audible, cuts through the music.
Yeah,
and all those kinds of things you get those little cues. So trying to we're looking at a lot of that kind of stuff and trying to fold that into what we're making. You got any more questions for AJ before we move on to audience?
I think we could jump into some of the questions here. I'm seeing some on the side here. So let's see. Will there be deathmatch in Prodeus? Yes.
I think that'll be fun. Yeah, deathmatch in Prodeus I think will be very, very fun.
Actually, Mike's in the most recent update that Mike put out in the testing branch, he's gearing it up for the multiplayer stuff to come in. So a lot of the level editor functions and stuff like that now should be able to pass through a connection. So like if you press a button over there, it should relay back to the core system that button was pressed. So we're starting to get that stuff in.
Nice.
Definitely want to get a lot of testing for co-op and multiplayer done.
Co-op will be good because co-op is a rarity these days in FPS games. And it's so much fun. And like, it's one of those things that's made Doom last as well as it has, is co-op and deathmatch. But in particular, co-op, I'm really excited for co-op Proteus. I think it's going to be, a lot of fun. Particularly,
it should be pretty good. I mean, I'm excited about it. I mean, there's some like really simple things that we want to do too that can just help other people convert their maps to co-op as well. And so I don't know. I'm excited just to see where that gets to. So we'll see. But yeah, multiplayer deathmatch style stuff. I have a lot of plans on taking like a lot of the maps that we kind of built for the single player campaign have like deathmatchy sets of stuff in them. So we want to like try and like pull a lot of fun areas from those maps to use for different types and stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, so that'd be fun.
You can pull out like a key arena and then like build a few, slap a few extra corridors and stuff around the outside, and bang, deathmatch map.
And done. Let's see. What is the driving force behind how fluid the online user content experience was? It's one of the most seamless implementations I've ever seen. How did you come about that? Mike's just a brilliant genius. No, like I think in a lot of the ways, he's seen from other games and like their content and stuff like that online. Like you can look at The Sims, for example. Like games like Super Mario Maker. These types of games where the levels are really tiny text files that can just be loaded through a reader or something like that that's built into the content, and it just makes the editor experience really fluid. It also makes it really nice for the workshop and just being able to, like, the other day I was having somebody test one of my new maps and I forgot I put the like give all weapons thing in there. Like I have a prefab that gives me all the weapons. And I was like, oh yeah, just give me a second. And I just went to the editor, removed it, hit upload, and was like, all right, hit restart. And then
that's so cool.
They started it again, and it was like done. I've never had that in my career before with a first person shooter. So being able to do that and being able to get testing done and like that whole fluid process is just so important to like the game at its core, and it's going to work on any of the platforms that we release in the future. It'll all work the same on all of those.
It's an amazing
as well.
interface, like what you guys have made there. Like, the back end work on that is, it's definitely one of the best systems out there in terms of having like that example, that instant upload, hit that restart button, bang, fixed.
I love it. I absolutely.
There's nothing more frustrating when you give a map to someone to test and it's got some level breaking thing that you forgot to fix. Oh, I can't play it. Oh, for fuck's sake! Okay, fix it. Re-upload it. Compile. Put it on Dropbox.
Compile it for like 30 minutes, and then got to re-upload that to like fileshare.org.
Exactly. And like just having that flow so much quicker must just take all the stress out of it, and you can get. Oh, it absolutely get that feedback that much faster. It makes you lazy though, for sure. You're just like, whatever. Just test with the. Oh, I forgot to add a doorway here. Okay, let me just do that real quick. That's great.
Those good times. Let me see. Arlene. Hey, Arlene, what's up? What do you recommend people work on if they plan to get into professional level design, EE, certain engines, workflow habits, etc.? If that wasn't already talked about. Honestly, my personal preference on this is work on whatever you want, because I think at the end of the day, if you're making levels and you want to make levels for a game, I think your style and your like your layout, like ability to build layouts is going to come out regardless if you want it to or not. Like, I do think that it's important, but like generally speaking, I would also say that you should build levels for the type of game that you want to work on. So let's say Dishonored, you want to go work at Arcane or something like that. Making a Dishonored type level in Doom might be difficult, but maybe picking up like Half-Life 2's editor would make it a little easier to like test that out. Or I have a hard time recommending engines like Unity and Unreal for level creation, because you have to have a game to make something for. And I would recommend that highly versus trying to make your own thing from scratch and then build a level for it, because that's going to come off not so great.
Yeah, I think, there's so many different games that you can work off. You can work off Doom, you can work off Half-Life, you can work off whatever, that you can find something that's analogous enough to the kind of stuff you like. And, for me, enjoying big epic slaughter fights and lots of demons and stuff, well, Doom is perfect. Obviously, there's going to be some limitations if remaking such things in Unity or UE4 or whatever. You can't have thousands of enemies, but I can still develop, like you say, you can still develop your level design tropes and get the hang of gameplay flow and learn those good core concepts, and regardless of what the game actually is.
For sure.
And definitely working with an existing asset set that takes so much hassle out of everything. Like, if you want to learn Unity, you'll either have to go to the Unity store and buy stuff, or get someone to make you stuff that you can use. Right. That's going to stilt your learning experience a lot. And I definitely agree with like make what you like.
I think if you have like I said, like your level design skills and your ability to set up something and showcase it, and like your ability to showcase your combat knowledge and like your scripting, whatever, like all of that can come off in anything that you do. You can make it, you can shine the way you would normally shine. I mean, it's the same thing like when I worked on Payday. It's the same thing when I worked with like a different editor. Like, it's just everything that you get, you just have to know the limitations of the editor that you're working with and work around them. But ultimately, you definitely want to try and make something for, like, if you're trying to apply to work on the next Doom, making a Doom style level that is close feeling to like the actual game is going to get you brownie points versus, if you're trying to apply for like if you want to work on the next Hitman series, which is like stealth and has a bunch of like Doom levels, might not be the best to showcase your ability to translate to that, especially if you're a junior. A lot of times, like if you're not like, you just need to like showcase your abilities and your skills really well.
Well, I will say knowing what I guess your kind of target market in terms of like what kind of game, like if there is a company or an IP that you want to work with specifically, devs check these things out and they notice it. Like I've noticed on Twitter, like the Doom Eternal devs, they look at Doom maps, and one of my recent ones was a remake of a medieval arena, and Dave Oshry got on it, and these things get noticed if you're referencing these games and these IPs. The people who made them are quite likely to pick up on it, and they're like, you'll be on their radar, and if they see it a few more times, and then you never know where that might lead. So I think that is important if you do want to go to the professional level of things.
Yeah,
targeting
the exact reference you just gave there too. When I was in Sweden, I didn't know this at the time, but so I really liked this game in VR that was one of the first. It was called Budget Cuts, and it was you're like basically throwing knives at these little robots, and you're kind of moving through a facility. It was really nice, and you had a portal gun, and in VR it was like you shoot the portal over there, and then you can look through it and like look around in 3D and like choose where you're going and stuff. And I was so enamored by it. This is so great. I made a prototype in Unreal 4 really quick, and I started showing it on my Twitter, and I didn't know this, but one of my friends that I interned at Raven works on the team, and they're in Sweden, and not only are they in Sweden, but they're like down the street or some shit. So it was like cool. Like I kept showing stuff on Twitter, and like they reached out and they were like, "Hey, do you want to grab lunch?"
Awesome.
And I like went and hung out with them for a day, and they let me actually like come to their office and play the game, and just chatting with them. I really actually wanted to. I was going to apply at their studio, but then just when I left Payday, I just wanted to come home after that because Sweden is cold.
Sweden is cold, yes.
But yeah, no, it's one of those things like you make stuff and you want to make stuff that, generally speaking, for the studios that you want to apply for, and it does come down to being that like knowing the tone of what you're doing and trying to cater your portfolio towards that type of studio. Like if you're going to apply to work at like a real-time strategy game, showing your Half-Life level isn't necessarily going to get you there, but maybe making an RTS level in like StarCraft or something,
exactly.
and showcasing like your ability to script and like set up moments and stuff and balance gameplay. That'll be, it just depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. I think,
but yeah, just build stuff for what you want, don't overthink it, but yeah, definitely cater your portfolio to the studio that you want to work at. And and unfortunately, like if Doom maps aren't going to cut it for that particular studio that you want to go work for, it would behoove you to at least try and build something in like a different one, even if it was just for like one level, just to like showcase your abilities,
proof of concept
in a different
kind of light. I will give it like something like GZ Doom and its ability to 8 other games, like depending on the asset set that you include. That is actually a really like I've seen a few comments from some people on the internet, trying to push more advanced stuff, but which is fine. But something like that engine or Raise, these asset sets exist, and don't underestimate how powerful these are. It might seem like it's just Doom maps,
Sure.
but GZ Doom you can do like there's several games like Sulaco, GZ Doom game. Supplice, GZ Doom game, Age of Hell.
Right.
These like you look at Sulaco. Sulaco does not look or feel like Doom at all. Not even a little.
No.
Not close. They didn't tell you that it used to start off as a Doom mod, you wouldn't believe it.
Right.
It's got
those total conversion games. They look like they're a lot of work too, but definitely very impressive. But yeah, I think like the whole idea of, and I know the person that made that comment to you, by the way. I sat next to them at Irrational, so like I know what you're referring to, but like about them trying to push like more the newer engines versus the old stuff, and I totally understand that standpoint, because to some degree it is true. Like having knowledge of more advanced tool sets can be quite useful. Because some of that stuff can be really, like when I went from Hammer to Unreal for the first time, it took a while for me to get used to it. And I think just having the ability to understand the editor can be useful. But like I said, at the end of the day, it really comes down to knowing what studio you're applying to and like getting your ideas across. Like you can use old editors and stuff like that, but the company that you're applying for might think, oh, does this person not know how to use an updated editor or something like that? It's small, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, if you're catering your maps and stuff to them and you let them know like this was specifically like, you know, I don't think it would be like that big of a deal.
I think one other thing to keep in mind when you're choosing an engine or a game to start with in terms of building up a portfolio is look at the tools. There is a vast amount of differences between all these things and how easy they are actually to edit. And that's one thing that Doom does have in spades is a very good editing tool, or Prodeus. So, if you wanted to go work at Prodeus, you can make Prodeus maps. But look at like something like UE4 is a bit more convoluted and technical and complex. Keep that in mind if you go. Nothing wrong with going into it and diving straight.
It's game too. That's
exactly.
What I mean. Like when I say like you want to work on something that has like an editor like Crysis or Far Cry or Half-Life or even like Half-Life Alyx, if you want to work at like a VR studio and you want to showcase VR stuff, downloading like a template, there like some of these assets from like the Unreal store and like, getting like a VR template and like stuff like that and putting together an idea. It's not as far-fetched, but it's definitely more work than you would think. And if you could just jump in and you have enemies already there, from Doom or Prodeus or Half-Life, whatever, that you can set up your own sequences and just prove that you know what you're doing when it comes to combat or composition or lighting or whatever. That kind of stuff matters, but that kind of skill can translate over to like other editors and things like that. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Got a couple more. One from Cinethief. What is the general story of Prodeus? Played the early release. I got interdimensional wall, and that's about it. Is there a heavy story in Prodeus actually?
I'm not going to be talking about that now today. You guys can wait. Like, I mean, when we come out with like newer levels and stuff, they touch a little bit on the story here and there. But overall, we didn't want you to be picking up like notebooks and like reading, text. But yeah, definitely like just keep an eye on some of the new maps that we're going to be working on. And
definitely feels like a game that's got like there is an amount of environmental storytelling that is in there, but it's not the primary focus.
I mean, it's
a few hints.
I have like a small stories like books worth of stuff in my head that I've written down and. That one day, like that's what I use to sort of drive the overall level progression and like what we're doing. But yeah, I'm probably not going to release that at the moment or like talk about it. Once the game's done, I think it's free to discuss that kind of stuff. But I'll just hold that off for now.
Very, very, very fair. That's still stuff to be released, I suggest, Cinder, you just watch this space.
But thanks for the question.
One from Neil. Did you say that Prodeus levels are text files? It's also got a quick update thing. Is that using some sort of SCM similar to Mercurial or Git?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head with that, like anything about that. I just know that when a 3D editor like ours opens a map file, or even like just any game, when a game goes to load up your level for the game, the reason why we have loading screens is because if you didn't have a loading screen, you would literally see the map getting built in front of you, because every time a level from any game that you're playing loads, it literally is constructing the level from a text file that says, okay, this vert point here, and here creates a quad, and then that quad has this material on it and this color on it, and it uses this sound and blah, blah, blah. And that all gets loaded every time. So that's just something that we're just using. It's just like a text loader. Like everybody's levels always get recreated like from scratch every time you open them. So that's just like a normal thing though.
Yeah, that's the same as Jason Doom. Like it rebuilds the nodes every time you load, and UDMF map files are literally text.
Yeah, sometimes you can get what back in the day, right? There was a thing that we used to call feature creep, or not creep, but like vert creep or something, where like over time things slowly start to drift on the grid. Like when we were working on Wolfenstein in 2009, or was it 2010 or 2009? One of the one before the new Machine Games one. Everything was so like, because we had like a really low grid setting. It was like we had, you had your like 0.1, which is like the lowest grid setting, and then it was like 0.01 was even lower because like they used to take planes and put decal textures on them and then just float them off the ground like ever so slightly. But because of that, some people would just take liberties with that and like build staircases that were like really like just micro, like, I mean,
that sounds like something I would do.
Like, yeah. you would start to see cracks over time. Like if that level has been around for like a year, a lot of the handrails in the staircase would like slowly start having like
that's really interesting
points in them.
Is that a rounding? Was that a rounding error or?
I think so. I think it must have been. It had to be because it was like super small grid, like the smallest grid that I've ever seen in my life. And usually, like a lot of new mappers, when they start working with an editor that gives them that kind of grid control, they always just stay on the smallest grid size.
My drawing.
Now. Oh shit!
Well, it's funny because like one of the beauties of UDMF is it introduces floating point vertices. So in older Doom, Boom and Vanilla, you can only go down to a 1 pixel grid, but UDMF can have proper floating point. I think it rounds to 3 places. But you notice, like I've noticed with some of my maps where they are very heavily off grid, it's slow. The rounding errors start creeping in, and there's all these like little overlapping things that I have to go back and fix. Fortunately, it doesn't creep after the level's built. But I know that feeling. It's like everything's just kind of slightly not quite perfect anymore. Damn you, rounding errors. Great.
She wants to ban you now, by the way. Is there a way that she can ban you? I don't think so. Sorry.
Feel free to try.
Once you make a map for Age of Hell, the admin tools unlock, and you're able to do that.
Yeah, there you go. So I did make a precision tutorial for her recently, so hopefully she's
wonderful. There's a wise saying some level designer once told me, and it's grid 8 is great. Grid 1 is no fun. And like that's how I've always remembered it. And like for Prodeus though, I always go a little bit higher, maybe like 16 or 32, but yeah, it's so true. If you stay on the one grid line, you're just asking for trouble.
I think like if I'm actually using the grid, I very rarely go below 8 or 16. And because if you're trying to actually use those tiny, it's just so easy to end up with shit not quite aligned, and it's a pain in the ass.
Well, the good thing about your editor though is that it's all top down, so like for the most part, so it'd be like you only have to really worry about things not aligning on the top down view. Man, I honestly don't know how you guys with the new editor, like the way that you make those arches and everything, like I don't know, that looks really complicated. A lot of text file editing and stuff.
Yeah, I think the new tools definitely made it a lot easier. Like there's a couple in particular that came out this year, in the last 12 months, and it has allowed for a lot more 3D design that was not really feasible previously. And I think there's still more development in that kind of design sphere, just in terms of like the cool shit that people are going to do over the next 12 to 24 months. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible with the new editor. That's very exciting, actually.
I guess I have one quick question for you then. And I've been thinking about this too. It's like you've gotten so close to just making 3D. Why have you guys? Why not? Or like, what's holding you guys back from trying something different? Or
so that is
like, because I feel like you've got like there's like some really awesome skill on display in a lot of these communities and a lot of these mappers who are now, instead of just doing sectors, they're doing proper 3D. But it looks like it takes way longer because of the way that you have to like use sectors and stuff. Or at least the onboarding process for somebody new to get to the point where you're at would be that would take months.
And that's a fair point. And like I said, there's been certain tools in particular that allow this kind of design to become recently much easier to do. It used to be horrendously time consuming. Like to make a 3D arch, you wouldn't really bother because of the way you had to set up the control sectors. So interestingly, like Doom, with all the advances with GZ Doom and all cool shit you can do and create the impression of proper 3D geometry, you still cannot draw a room over another room in the editor. The engine does not allow it. It still can't be done, which is really, really fascinating. That is still an immutable law of even GZ Doom. So for me personally, we're so far into, like, Age of Hell has been a thing that worked on for a long time, and it would be a huge change to shift over to a different engine. And
sure.
Rather than do that, that's when this is finished. Well, that's when I will make that jump personally. And I think the reason you still see people who could potentially make very good stuff in, say, Quake engine or Half-Life or anything like that, Doom has a couple of things going for it. One is a good, strong community around custom content. I'd say it's probably the best. Certainly in terms of FPS, it's been around for a long time. It's in very good health at the moment. The new Dooms have brought in an influx of new people, lots of interest, and the quality of what's being made has never been higher. It's insane how much skill there is. It's ridiculous. So it's got momentum. So if you think, oh, maybe I do want to try and make something a little bit more advanced, you lose that momentum, community momentum. And I actually probably Prodeus is would be the next best. I think if you were going to go into something 3D, I'd recommend that to people. With a very good editor and a good
assets.
Yeah, and because you guys have put so much passion and time into the editor and generating that community, it's there and it is building that community momentum. Quake's got obviously a good core as well. But there's not much else outside of that, really, in terms of like oldish games that you can go and make content for that you know that you'll get a bunch of people playing. I think that's a big thing about why Doom is so attractive, and it is so easy to just get into the editor. Throw down a few lines, you've got a room. Like, you don't have to define brushes. Like, make a room in Quake, you got to build each wall.
Right.
Doom, you just draw 4 lines, and it sets the height default 128 straight away. You've got a room, you can put the player in there, within minutes, you've got a map that you can actually walk around in. Very easy. It's just a room, but it's that quick.
My first interaction with the Doom editor was I made a room, and then I tried to make a door, and my room moved. And like,
you and just about everyone else.
Immediately I was like, okay. I was like, this is how this is going to work. All right.
It's amazing. And it's consistent, so this is not a casting aspersions on anyone for not getting. But how many people struggle with making a door, and all you got to do is get the line, get the action line flipped the wrong way, and all of a sudden your room moves.
Right? Yeah, it was. That like little bit alone would probably. Yeah, I could imagine like trying to build levels and then getting caught up on like little technical things like that for sure.
But every editor, every engine and every editor's got its quirks like that.
For sure.
So. But yeah.
Can you imagine though that modding has just ruined games?
I know, it's just terrible. It's just watered down IP.
Modders, they've just literally ruined the games that they used to exist. Just absolutely made them terrible.
Driving game companies out of business. I made Age of Hell and ID went bankrupt. Just like that.
You guys weren't here for it, but when me and Bridge were off the topic, I said, could you imagine if John Romero said that?
I think most people in the chat were aware of the shitstorm that happened that week.
It's good times. Bridge, this has been a lot of fun. We've been going at it for like close to almost 2 hours now or something like that.
I said I wasn't going to ramble, but
it's always fun though. We always have a good time just like chatting. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks everybody in chat for coming by and asking your questions there at the end. And Arlene, I'm sure you'll get your chance to ban him at some point.
No, thank you very much, and thanks for coming on a second time. I know you're a busy man. I really appreciate it. And you're always great to talk to, and we talked earlier about how much fun Simple had in your Discord server, chatting to. So anyone who wants to pick Vivi's brain, he is very active in the Prodeus Discord, always testing maps and engaging with people.
Absolutely,
one of the best for that. He's got a lot of time for the fans, which we all very much appreciate. And yeah, so thank you very much for coming on again. I'm sure we'll see you at some point again in the future. But
sure, part 3, part 4,
exactly.
and part 5. We gotta make the trilogy.
Exactly. But I'll let you get back to work.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And
see you, Bridge.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye. All right, GG. That is it. And there'll be no additional stream. We're not going to do any more today. So thanks everyone for hanging out. And you'll see me tomorrow, playtesting Tuesday. I'll put up the usual stream announcement schedule today. And I hope you all had a lovely weekend. And thanks again, Mr. Vivi. Lovely person. I will post a link to their Discord. 2 seconds. Definitely a good one to jump into, even if you don't have the game. It's a great community for level design. Let's get a limit. Link. Copy. That should be a link. Yep. So grab that. Definitely jump in there. Like I said, Vivi has got a lot of time for the people. Dragonfly's a dev there. Definitely one of the better mapping communities that's growing and only getting bigger and better. Should see some exciting things coming out of there in the future. So thanks again, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow with some playtesting. We'll see you then. We'll go find someone to raid. Derek is doing some more Stardate 20x7 runs, speedrunning, so let's go say hi.